Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this narration of the web series Very Clever Primates, taken from Reddit with the author's approval. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. 3 days without sleep took their toll on my body. Half of a rotation passed before I found the strength to awaken from my pseudo-hibernation. The soft, bellowed blanket, currently wrapped around me like a cocoon, provided too much warmth to part with it. Couple that with my exhaustion, the air duct gently blowing cooled air onto my bundled-up frame, and you have yourself a very, very comfortable Volan. It was heavenly. "Scala Scalan," a voice called out from beyond my quarters. I knew that voice. The all-too-perky diplomat Skoya. Her voice grated on my nerves, my earlobes folding over to block out that incessant sound. It was sleep time. "Scala Scalan, where you were supposed to be at a meeting a quarter of a rotation ago. Are you okay?" she called out. A growl escaped my chest, tongue backing away so that my teeth would not cut the sensitive muscle. The orange glow erupting from my blanket made me look radioactive. Meetings with different governments was a diplomat's job. Couldn't the scholar just sleep? "By the gods, woman, I was awake for 3 rotations before I managed to get this much rest. Can you just record the meeting? I trust that it wouldn't have been too difficult," I barked out, the annoyance evident in my voice. A swift pounding was met at the door, followed by my outburst, forcing me to further retreat into my blanketed cocoon. There was no biological scholar, only Skolan, the cocoon. However, the pounding only seemed to grow louder as she put all of her strength into it. Was she going to bash down my door? I cursed the names of each and every person on the ship as I writhed in my blanket, unwillingly forcing myself free from the comfort of my bed. I was half tempted to thrust open the door to display my body in the nude for those rude enough to awaken me. It would have been funny to see the flurry of colors on their scales from the indecency. The radiant orange glow was slowly changing to yellow as the thoughts of seeing their aghast reaction to my naked form flooded my mind. It was true, I was getting older, but that didn't mean that it wasn't fun to act immature. I settled on wearing a basic tunic with casual shorts, making my way towards the door, entering in the security code on the nearby keypad so that the steel portal would slowly open up. Anyone on the other side would clearly see my unamused expression, scales a dull orange, while I got ready to be verbally attacked by the diplomat I wished I never had the displeasure of meeting. She was abhorrent. Her colors were all wrong. They swirled. They didn't flow. They were obnoxiously bright, as if everything was either the worst or best thing ever created. She bounced, bubbled, and clicked the claws on her feet on the ground with every step. If she was dumped into the vast abyss of space for the crime of simply existing, I would have thrown a party after her removal. I detested this woman's presence. She was so animated. Did I mention clueless? She was quick to roll into an obnoxiously bright yellow tone even after she saw my less than amused colors. Hello, Scholar Scalan," she exclaimed, nearly twirling in place, her cast robe swaying back and forth as she wobbled from the sensations of far too much emotion. Who even wore the cast robes anyway? They didn't have any pockets and were impractical than any other setting besides academy graduation. Every rotation was a celebration to her, and I wanted to vomit. Her colors were gaudy. Her voice was like a screeching engine. Her eyes took too red of a hue. She was a god's damned idiot. And, if you'd permit me being petty, she smelled bad. But I'd be damned myself if she didn't have at least 10 emotional partners at any given time. People were drawn to that bubbly moron. She was an emotional disease to me, however, meant to be eradicated. I could fill the library with tomes on just how much displeasure this woman's very existence brought me. I'd go on book signing tours. "Well, aren't you just the sleepy hatchling?" she exclaimed, reaching forward before I even had a chance for a quick retort. She attached a small adhesive badge to my shirt. It was made of thin paper, one side having words in strange characters written on it, a language that I didn't recognize. I pulled my tunic to gaze down at the strange symbols. utterly confused, and growing increasingly brighter orange as I heard those incessant giggles. "Do you like your name tag, Skalar, she asked. I lived on the ship with this woman for many, many revolutions. Even still, she used my formal name and title every time I had the displeasure of speaking with her. Just lad is fine, yeah. We've known each other for how long now? There is no reason to be so formal," I said, trying my best to keep the kind of tone of voice, despite my irritation being blatantly obvious. Either she was too dim to notice my colors, or she simply didn't care. Her chipper attitude did not falter. "But Skalar, this is reason to be formal," she exclaimed. I could not stop my eyes from rolling back in distaste. "And why is that, Diplomat Skalar?" I asked, a snotty tone following suit. She must have noticed my snarky comment this time, for her colors changed. In a shocking turn of events, her colors changed to a light orange that blended with her normal chippy yellow. Irritation. Was I getting under her scales? Did I ruffle her quills? The thought was exciting. "If you would have been awake, Skalar, you would have known," she said, her normal abrasive voice grinding away into disdain herself. "We managed to establish a connection with a group of humans on Earth. This is the first time we'll be speaking to actual leaders of the people, and if my very presence around you is enough to turn you into an orange star, you've been selected to take part in this meeting," she said. My scales turned blue almost immediately. Meeting with the alien leaders. That was no job for a scholar. That was a job for diplomats. I was just to ensure my species could survive traveling to the chaotic rock. Why was I selected? "That changed your hue pretty quickly," she said, giggling, her orange tones falling back into the bubbly yellow. "We've been hard at work deciphering humanity's languages for the past few rotations while you worked. We decided to focus on one of their primary tongues first, what the humans call English. It was their language of the space-faring humans that made contact with us. Since they told their leaders about you, specifically, they requested you to be there." "Why?" I asked, my scales still blue in shock. "I'm just a scholar. I have no business in the affairs of aliens. That's your job. That's your cost," I said, violent concern mixing with the blue of my awe. It was one of the times in my life that I was okay with hearing what Skalar had to say. "Humans are weird," she said blatantly, the perpetual yellow on her scales shining bright. "From what we've learned about them, their political leaders can be one and the same as the scholars and warriors. They, at least from the ones we talk to, don't have castes," she stated, with the quills on my head rising in confusion. "No castes? That's absurd and upsets balance. There's always going to be people more socially inclined than others. Why would they let their scholars lead? Our purpose is to educate, learn, and create. We're not meant to lead and maintain social relationships," I stated, leaning against the frame of my door. This was possibly the most neutral conversation I ever had with Yar. The diplomatic world was so strange. Yet to her, it was all bright and filled with pretty colors. Then again, life was bright and filled with pretty colors for Yar. Yar actually began to rub her arm, his scales changing into a color I had not seen on her, a dull violet. Sorrow. On Yar, of all people. I grew concerned, yet curious. "We've had the opportunity to watch how humans operate. They have unofficial castes based on skill sets and material ownership. They're very cold creatures at times, but are born, you grow, and then you either succeed or fail," she said, her quills drooping to match her color. My scale shifted to orange-blue. It was absurd to think about, leaving people to rot if they couldn't succeed on their own. "Look, Skalar, we must remember that they are a different species," she said, her tone hushed. "They're a young species, still finding their way. We find ourselves in an odd, difficult position here. If the humans can see how we operate and succeed, working hand in hand with people from very different lifestyles, they might be willing to change. But on the other hand, if we try and guide them too much, we risk insulting them. Leave the discussions to us diplomats. We cannot risk our only galactic neighbors slamming the door in our face," she said, reaching to place a hand on my shoulder. I sighed, looking over the diplomat, a flash of yellow hitting my scales. I hated this woman, and she did have a point. "I sure do hope they change, Yar," I said, my scales changing to pure violet in sorrow for those unfortunate people on Earth left to rot after falling off the ladder of success. I would hate for our own hatchlings to become afraid for their own fates after seeing our neighbors letting their children fail. Yah hummed, it thought, looking down for a moment. I do not think that it is as bad as that. The diplomats still need to research more about their history. At the moment, we only have basic translations available for only one of their primary languages and a few broadcasts the humans have sent out into space. I have our AI assistants working on translating, but even they could use a break after a while. All of those simulations we've put in recently are causing them to get grumpy, she said, her chipper yellow returning, especially after I donned my lab coat and dress pants to look more presentable. Very well, I trust you'll have at least this English deciphered soon. Most of the ship will need to learn it fairly quickly if we are to make landfall. The antibodies should only need a few more days to cook, I stated, Yah nodding in response. She waved her hand behind her shoulder, claws tapping on the metal floor as she took a few steps out of my quarters. Most certainly, the diplomat AIs were itching to get back to work anyway. They aren't like the scholars AI. You and your AI friends are always so busy doing that science stuff. I'm shocked your scholars don't go mad from the workload, she exclaimed, refuting my agitation. I steadied my colors. I couldn't let my swiftly growing irritation ruin this moment. If these humans slammed their door in our faces, could our species really deal with the rejection of that scale? This wasn't being declined an emotional partnership if humanity wanted nothing to do with us. Oh no. We would be alone. Again. My scales became more and more black as their dread hit my mind. Even with Yah's chipper humming and bright colors, the only thing I could think about now was the species wanting to be left to their own devices and telling us to leave them alone. It made me think just about how cooperative the Valan were as a race. Everything, from our social structures to our children rearing, was based off cooperation. One could not succeed without the other. To find a species that worked off competition instead, could we even coexist? My thoughts bounced back to the warning by the first humans, how we would be attacked if we arrived. Why? Would they try and kill us and take our technology, like barbarians? I let out a quick breath as we approached the bridge of the ship. I couldn't let these fears get the best of me. They were different, sure, but thinking that our galactic neighbors would be little more than primitive barbarians was not doing them enough credit. We had just met them, and I already had doubts about them. I guess I was just worried that we'd be alone again. I think we all were. The Valan, for all their technological process, really couldn't handle being alone anymore. We were brilliant scholars, kind diplomats, and guardians of the people. But it was so damned lonely out here by ourselves. Yah opened the portal to the bridge of the ship. I'd only been here a few times before. The paragons of scholarship, diplomacy, and battle, the three leaders of the different castes on this particular vessel, were all there. The paragon of scholarship himself personally selected me to lead the biology team after my thesis on how to reverse the process of the necrotizing venom of the Caltheum sharpmouth plant. I've saved thousands of lives, and it was one of my greatest achievements during my nymph years. However, it wasn't the paragon that held my interest. It was on the humans on the large display in the center of the bridge. My heart picked up in speed as I looked at them. They looked far older than the humans I'd seen before, their flesh sagging, wrinkled, grey. Their lack of colors was bizarre. They looked so neutral, emotionless. I couldn't get a read on any of them, but from their physical traits alone, I could see that they were, in fact, males of their species. The humans in the center clothes were dark green, his breast covered in various ribbons in different colors. What an odd fashion. The fur on his head was grey with age, but his eyes possessed the wisdom of someone who deserved that grey. He folded his hands together, those wise eyes looking right at me as I looked up at the display. "This is the one that took the sample of our astronaut," the man asked, text displaying at the top of the screen so that I could understand what was said. The diplomats weren't kidding when they said that they had been working on translators. Indeed, the paragon of diplomacy said, his scales green with anxiety. Humans knew not what our colors meant yet, a good advantage in an initial contact. I can assure you, it was just so that our kind could gather immunities to meet you face to face. We mean no harm, as I've said, he spoke. The human rose one of his hands, a sigh leaving his lips as he looked on towards the awe-struck species. If you were going to attack us, you would have done so already. You wouldn't have sat by the moon on your ship like a child looking for someone to play with. Like you told us, we're the first aliens you've met in the galaxy. You're making the antibodies so that you don't have to wear hazard suits if and when you make landfall. The question I have is, why do you need to make landfall? He asked. Not even the paragon of diplomacy had a decent response to that. Why did we need to make landfall? Why couldn't we just let them know that we were here and that we came in peace? Why did we need to get onto their planet? Were we that desperate to meet another alien species that we couldn't leave them alone? The answer was yes, and those clever primitives saw right through us. There is going to be a meeting regarding you, Valon, in a few days, the man said, his eyes squinting. You're going to stay in your ship while we talk about what to do about this. Do you know what chaos you've caused here? Do you know how many deaths you've caused because everyone is terrified that you're going to attack us? But we're not. It doesn't matter what your intentions are. People are panicking all across the planet, he said, sighing as the human rubbed his eyes. How unsanitary. My scales started to fade to a soft black tone, knowing that our kind would be refused our chance to meet face to face with likely the only sapient species in this part of the galaxy. What the human said next shocked us to the core. Don't you know it's rude to visit your neighbors without knocking first? You have my support for landfall here on Earth, mostly because a lot of people would burn my house to the ground if I chased actual aliens from another planet away. It's the other leaders that'll take convincing. I have some work to do, and I expect some help. We all collectively let out a sigh of relief, doing our best to keep our composure. Our neighbors were going to open their doors to us. We wouldn't be alone anymore. What do you need? The paragon of diplomacy asked. The human's lips curled into a smile, his upper eye full lifting in amusement. The good doctor making your antibiotics. He comes here first. Wait, what? End of chapter. This is a special thank you to the one, the only, the legendary Eric Hino, who has become the only Tier 6 patron. I just want to thank the T5 patrons and channel members. Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Estrella the Dreamer, Tryagain95, Fudic Yol, Meridian117, Elysia, Jordan Bucksbaum, Angry Marine, Albard and Gusta, and Barkey. Thank you very much. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed. There are links down below, both to support this channel and for the author of this fiction. Anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic one, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.